Sergeant Jesse Stevens never imagined he'd be Earth's unwilling savior, forced to breed with alien females to prevent an interstellar war. Yet here he stood, aboard the massive Iridian mothership, facing an impossible choice that would determine the fate of humanity. The day had started like any other at Fort Carson, Colorado. Jesse was leading his squad through a routine training exercise when the sky erupted with blinding flashes. Sleek, otherworldly craft descended upon the base, their energy weapons carving precise holes through reinforced concrete and steel. In the chaos that followed, Jesse found himself separated from his team. A beam of crackling energy enveloped him, and the world dissolved into a haze of blue light. When his vision cleared, he was no longer on Earth. The Iridian High Council chamber stretched before him, a cavernous space of sweeping arches and pulsing bioluminescent panels. Grand Executor Laros, a towering figure with iridescent skin and multifaceted eyes, regarded Jesse with a mix of curiosity and desperation. "Sergeant Stevens," Laros intoned, his voice resonating with harmonics beyond human hearing, "you have been chosen for a task of utmost importance." Jesse's military training kicked in as he assessed his surroundings. The Iridians, despite their advanced technology, appeared physically frail. Millennia of genetic manipulation had left them vulnerable, teetering on the brink of extinction. Laros explained their dire situation. The Iridian species faced a genetic bottleneck, their carefully curated bloodlines now a liability. They needed an infusion of raw, unaltered DNA to survive. Human DNA. Jesse's DNA. "We require you to mate with select females from our most diverse lineages," Laros stated, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "This is not a request, Sergeant. It is a demand." Jesse's mind reeled. The implications were staggering. "I won't be part of this," he growled, fists clenching at his sides. "You can't just abduct people and force them to breed." Laros's eyes narrowed, and a holographic display flickered to life. It showed the Iridian fleet in orbit around Earth, weapons primed. "Your compliance ensures your planet's safety," the alien leader said coldly. "Refuse, and we will have no choice but to take what we need by force." The weight of the situation crashed down on Jesse. His actions would determine the fate of billions. As a ranger, he'd sworn to protect his country, his planet. But this was beyond anything he'd trained for. Guards flanked Jesse, ushering him towards a door that irised open at their approach. Beyond lay a chamber bathed in soft amber light. Curved surfaces and plush textures created an environment clearly designed for comfort and procreation. An Iridian female waited inside, her form both alien and disturbingly alluring. She regarded Jesse with a mixture of hope and apprehension, aware of the burden they both carried. Jesse hesitated at the threshold. Behind him lay captivity and an impossible task. Before him, a path that might save humanity but would compromise everything he believed in. The fate of two species hung in the balance. As alarms blared across Earth and military forces scrambled to respond to the alien incursion, Jesse Stevens faced a decision that would reshape the galaxy. The future of humanity now rested in his hands, and other parts of his anatomy. Jesse took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the door's control panel. The amber glow from within the chamber cast eerie shadows across his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw. With a final glance back at the Iridian guards, he stepped inside. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving Jesse alone with the alien female. She stood motionless near the center of the room, her iridescent skin shimmering in the warm light. Large, almond-shaped eyes regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. "I am Zyla," she said, her voice a melodic trill that seemed to resonate in Jesse's chest. "You are the human chosen for our salvation." Jesse's military training kicked in, his mind racing to assess the situation and find a way out. He needed time to think, to formulate a plan that didn't involve compromising his principles or dooming Earth to annihilation. "Zyla," he began, taking a careful step forward, "I'm Sergeant Jesse Stevens. Before we proceed, I'd like to understand more about your people. This situation is completely foreign to me." Zyla's head tilted slightly, her multifaceted eyes blinking in rapid succession. "You wish to converse? I was not informed this was part of the procedure." Jesse seized the opportunity. On Earth, it's customary for potential mates to get to know each other first. "Tell me about Iridian culture, your methods of reproduction. How does this usually work for your people?" As Zyla began to explain, Jesse's eyebrows rose in surprise. The Iridians reproduced through a complex process of genetic recombination, with no physical contact involved. The concept of mating as humans understood it was entirely alien to them. "So, you've never?" Jesse trailed off, gesturing vaguely between them. Zyla's skin rippled with what Jesse assumed was the Iridian equivalent of a blush. "Physical intimacy is not part of our reproductive cycle. The idea is fascinating, if somewhat alarming." As Jesse described human reproduction in clinical terms, Zyla's reactions ranged from shock to intense curiosity. Her rapid-fire questions about human biology and social customs gave Jesse valuable insights into Iridian thought processes and society. Time stretched on as they continued their cultural exchange. Jesse's mind whirred, processing the information and searching for leverage he could use to find an alternative solution to the crisis. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The door to the breeding chamber slid open, revealing Grand Executor Laros flanked by a team of Iridian scientists. "Enough delay, Sergeant Stevens," Laros boomed, his patience clearly worn thin. "Chief Geneticist Zorn and his team will now prepare you both for the procedure." The scientists moved into the room, setting up various instruments around Jesse and Zyla. Jesse's heart raced as he watched them work, knowing he had to act fast. "Wait," he said, locking eyes with Zyla. In that moment, he saw a flicker of something. Understanding, perhaps even trust. "Zyla, we need to talk to the High Council. There might be another way, one that doesn't involve forced breeding." Zyla hesitated, her gaze darting between Jesse and the Iridian officials. After a tense moment, she nodded. "I agree. This human has provided valuable insights. We should explore alternative solutions." Chief Geneticist Zorn paused in his preparations, his elongated fingers hovering over a complex array of controls. "Grand Executor, the female raises a valid point. Our understanding of human biology is limited. Perhaps there is merit in further discussion." Laros's multifaceted eyes narrowed, but he eventually relented. "Very well. You will be escorted to the High Council chamber immediately. But be warned, Sergeant Stevens, our patience is not infinite." As they were led through the winding corridors of the mothership, Jesse's trained eye took in every detail. He noted the layout, the placement of security checkpoints, and the advanced technology integrated into every surface. If negotiations failed, this information could prove crucial for Earth's defense. The Iridian crew they passed stared openly at Jesse, their reactions ranging from fear to fascination. He overheard snippets of conversation in their musical language, catching references to human and savior amidst the alien syllables. Zyla leaned close, her voice low. "Your presence has caused quite a stir among my people, Jesse Stevens. Some view you as our last hope, while others see you as a threat to our way of life." Jesse nodded grimly. "The feeling's mutual back on Earth, I'm sure. But there has to be a solution that doesn't end in war or this." As they approached the High Council chamber, Jesse steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. He had no illusions about the difficulty of the task before him, convincing an alien species to abandon their plan for survival in favor of an unknown alternative. The massive doors of the chamber began to iris open, revealing the assembled Iridian leadership within. Jesse squared his shoulders, acutely aware that the fate of two species rested on what happened next. At that moment, a violent shudder ran through the ship, nearly throwing Jesse off his feet. Alarms blared, and Iridian crew members rushed past, shouting in their native tongue. "What's happening?" Jesse demanded, grabbing Zyla's arm. Her eyes were wide with shock. "We're under attack. It seems your people have not been idle during your captivity, Jesse Stevens." As chaos erupted around them, Jesse realized the situation had just become infinitely more complicated. Now he would have to navigate not only interspecies diplomacy, but also prevent an all-out war between Earth and the Iridians, all while trapped aboard an alien mothership under siege. Jesse steadied himself as the ship rocked from another impact. Alarms blared throughout the corridors, bathing everything in a pulsing red glow. Iridian crew members rushed past, their usual grace replaced by frantic urgency. "We need to get to the High Council chamber," Jesse said, his voice raised to be heard over the commotion. "It might be our only chance to stop this before it gets worse." Zyla nodded, her iridescent skin flickering with what Jesse now recognized as anxiety. "Follow me. I know a quicker route." They sprinted through the winding passageways of the mothership, Jesse's combat boots thundering against the organic-looking floor. As they ran, he couldn't help but marvel at the alien architecture, sweeping curves and pulsing bioluminescent panels that seemed to react to their presence. They skidded to a halt before the massive doors of the High Council chamber. Two Iridian guards stood at attention, their elongated fingers wrapped around sleek energy weapons. "We must speak with Grand Executor Laros immediately," Zyla said, her melodic voice carrying an unmistakable note of authority. The guards exchanged a glance, then stepped aside. The doors irised open, revealing the cavernous chamber beyond. Inside, chaos reigned. Iridian counselors argued in their musical language, gesticulating with multiple limbs. Holographic displays flickered around the room, showing what Jesse assumed were tactical readouts of the battle outside. Grand Executor Laros stood at the center of the storm, his towering form radiating barely suppressed fury. His multifaceted eyes locked onto Jesse as they entered. "Sergeant Stevens," Laros boomed, silencing the room. "Have you come to gloat over your people's treachery?" Jesse stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "No, sir. I've come to offer a solution, one that doesn't involve war or forced breeding." A murmur rippled through the assembled Iridians. Laros's eyes narrowed, but he motioned for Jesse to continue. "You need our DNA to save your species," Jesse said, his mind racing to articulate the plan forming in his head. "But there are better ways to get it than abduction and coercion. What if we work together, a joint scientific effort between humans and Iridians?" Chief Geneticist Zorn pushed through the crowd, his elongated fingers twitching with excitement. "The human raises an intriguing possibility, Grand Executor. Their genetic diversity could hold the key to our salvation, but we've barely scratched the surface of understanding their biology." Laros considered this, his iridescent skin rippling with conflicting emotions. "And what guarantee do we have that your people would cooperate given our initial approach?" Another impact rocked the ship, as if to emphasize the precariousness of their situation. "Let me demonstrate," Jesse said, seizing the moment. "Allow me to show you how humans approach mating. It might give your scientists valuable insights into our genetics." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Zyla's skin flushed with a kaleidoscope of colors, her large eyes darting between Jesse and the Iridian leadership. After a tense moment, Laros nodded. "Very well, Sergeant Stevens. You will be escorted to an observation chamber. Zorn, assemble your team." As they left the council chamber, Jesse felt a mix of relief and apprehension. He'd bought some time, but the real challenge lay ahead. The observation room was a stark contrast to the earlier breeding chamber. Clinical and bright, it resembled a cross between an operating theater and a laboratory. Jesse stood at its center, acutely aware of the Iridian scientists watching from behind a transparent barrier. Zyla entered, her movements hesitant. "I have volunteered to assist in this demonstration," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jesse took a deep breath, trying to ignore the absurdity of the situation. "All right, let's start with the basics of human courtship." He began explaining the concepts of attraction, dating, and romance. The Iridians listened with rapt attention, their expressions a mix of fascination and confusion. Zorn's fingers danced across a holographic interface, taking copious notes. "Physical contact is an important part of human intimacy," Jesse said, gently taking Zyla's hand. Her skin was cool and smooth with a faint electric tingle. "It releases chemicals in our brains that promote bonding." Zyla's eyes widened at the touch, her skin rippling with a cascade of colors. The watching Iridians leaned forward, captivated by this alien display of affection. Just as Jesse was about to demonstrate a kiss, alarms blared throughout the ship. The observation room's door slid open, revealing a squad of heavily armed Iridian security forces. "The ship has been breached," one of them shouted. "All non-essential personnel must evacuate immediately." Chaos erupted in the corridor outside. Jesse locked eyes with Zyla, seeing a mix of fear and commitment in her alien features. "We need to get to the communications center," he said urgently. "It might be our only chance to stop this before it turns into all-out war." Zyla hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I know a way. Follow me." As they slipped out of the observation room, Jesse caught sight of a group of younger Iridians who had been watching the demonstration. Their eyes shone with curiosity and a hint of rebellion. "Wait," Jesse called to them. "We could use your help." The young Iridians exchanged glances, then moved to join Jesse and Zyla. As they navigated the chaotic corridors of the mothership, Jesse couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this unlikely alliance could be the key to preventing a catastrophic conflict between their species. But as they rounded a corner and came face to face with a group of armed Iridian security forces, Jesse realized that reaching the communications center and averting war would be far from easy. As they rounded the corner, Jesse's heart sank at the sight of armed Iridian security forces blocking their path. The tension in the air was palpable as both groups froze, weapons raised. In that moment of hesitation, chaos erupted. A barrage of energy bolts lit up the corridor, forcing Jesse and his companions to dive for cover. The acrid smell of ozone filled the air as the firefight intensified. "These aren't High Council forces," Zyla shouted over the din, her skin flashing with alarm. "They're Sub-Commander Vex's rebels." Jesse's mind raced as he assessed their situation. The rebels were well armed and had the advantage of superior positioning. He needed to act fast. "Everyone, stay low," he commanded, his military training kicking in. "Use the corridor's curvature for cover." The young Iridians looked to him with a mix of fear and trust in their large, multifaceted eyes. Jesse guided them into defensive positions, using the ship's organic architecture to their advantage. The pulsing bioluminescent panels provided a disorienting backdrop to the battle, casting shifting shadows that made it difficult for the rebels to target them accurately. As energy bolts sizzled past, Jesse noticed something peculiar about the Iridian weapons. Each shot seemed to leave a residual energy signature in the air, a pattern he recognized from his earlier observations of Iridian technology. An idea struck him. "Zyla," he called out, "can these weapons be reconfigured?" Zyla nodded, her fingers already dancing across the sleek surface of her weapon. "Yes, but what do you have in mind?" "If we can alter the energy output," Jesse explained quickly, "we might be able to incapacitate them without causing permanent harm." Understanding dawned in Zyla's eyes. She worked swiftly, her knowledge of Iridian technology proving invaluable. Within moments, she handed the reconfigured weapon to Jesse. "It's set to emit a non-lethal energy pulse," she said, "but the range is limited. We'll need to get closer." Jesse nodded grimly. "Cover me," he said to the young Iridians. "I'm going in." With a deep breath, Jesse darted from cover, zigzagging to avoid the rebels' fire. He could feel the heat of energy bolts passing mere inches from his skin. As he closed the distance, he raised the modified weapon and squeezed the trigger. A wave of blue-white energy pulsed outward, engulfing the nearest group of rebels. They collapsed instantly, their bodies twitching but otherwise unharmed. Jesse didn't pause to celebrate, instead tossing the weapon back to Zyla. "Reconfigure the others," he shouted. "We need to push through." As Zyla worked to modify the remaining weapons, Jesse coordinated their advance. The young Iridians, emboldened by his leadership, moved with newfound purpose. They leapfrogged forward, providing covering fire as Jesse and Zyla incapacitated rebel after rebel with the non-lethal pulses. The tide of battle turned in their favor, but Jesse knew they couldn't afford to lose momentum. "We need to reach the communications center," he reminded them. "It's our only chance to stop this war before it spirals out of control." They pressed on, fighting their way through the winding corridors of the mothership. Jesse's ears rang with the constant hum of energy weapons and the musical shouts of Iridian voices. The acrid smell of ozone mixed with an alien scent he couldn't quite place. something between ozone and cinnamon. As they neared the communications center, a new sound cut through the chaos, human voices and the distinctive report of projectile weapons. Jesse's heart leapt. That's got to be a rescue team from Earth. But their path forward was blocked by a three-way firefight. Vex's rebels clashed with Loyalist Iridian forces, while a group of humans in combat gear fought both sides. Jesse recognized the fierce, determined expression of the woman leading the human squad. Colonel Harper, his commanding officer. "Harper!" Jesse shouted, waving his arms. "Colonel Harper, over here!" Harper's head snapped in his direction, her eyes widening in recognition. She barked orders to her team, and half of them peeled off, laying down suppressing fire to clear a path to Jesse's position. "Stevens!" Harper called as she reached him, her voice a mix of relief and frustration. "What the hell is going on here?" Before Jesse could respond, another volley of energy bolts forced them all to duck for cover. Harper's expression hardened as she took in the sight of Jesse's Iridian allies. "Sir," Jesse said quickly, "I know this looks bad, but these Iridians are on our side. We need to get to the communications center. I think I can negotiate a peaceful resolution, but we have to act fast." Harper's eyes narrowed, but years of working together had built a foundation of trust. She nodded sharply. "All right, Stevens, what's the play?" Jesse outlined his plan rapidly, explaining the non-lethal weapons and the need to reach the communications center. Harper listened intently, her tactical mind already adapting to the new information. "Johnson, Lee," she called to two of her squad members. "Take half the team and secure our exit route. The rest of you, we're pushing to the comm center with Stevens and his allies." With Harper's team bolstering their numbers, they made swift progress. The combined force of human and Iridian fighters proved formidable, cutting through the remaining resistance. As they approached the communications center, Jesse felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could pull this off. The doors to the communications center irised open, revealing a scene of tense standoff. Grand Executor Laros stood with a contingent of guards, their weapons trained on Jesse's group. But instead of the expected hostility, Laros's multifaceted eyes gleamed with something akin to admiration. "Sergeant Stevens," Laros said, his resonant voice filling the room, "your actions haven't gone unnoticed. Perhaps we have underestimated the potential of human ingenuity and diplomacy." Jesse stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Grand Executor, we have a chance here to prevent a catastrophic war, but I need to know the full truth. How dire is your species' genetic crisis?" Laros's iridescent skin rippled with conflicting emotions. After a moment of hesitation, he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. "Our species faces extinction within a single generation, if a solution is not found. The forced breeding program was an act of desperation. One I now see was misguided." The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Jesse's mind raced, processing the implications and searching for a solution that could satisfy both sides. "I have a proposal," Jesse said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I'll voluntarily provide genetic samples and act as a liaison between Earth and the Iridians. In exchange, you immediately cease all hostile actions against Earth and release any other human captives." Laros considered the offer, his multifaceted eyes studying Jesse intently. "And what guarantee do we have that your people will honor such an agreement?" Before Jesse could respond, the doors burst open again. Colonel Harper and her team rushed in, weapons raised. The room erupted into chaos as Iridians and humans alike took defensive positions. "Wait!" Jesse shouted, placing himself between the two groups. "Colonel Harper, please! We're on the verge of a peaceful resolution. We can't afford to let this opportunity slip away." Harper's eyes darted between Jesse and the Iridians, her finger tense on the trigger. "Explain, fast." As Jesse rapidly outlined the situation and his proposed solution, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A young Iridian burst into the room, his skin flashing with urgency. "Grand Executor," he gasped, "Sub-Commander Vex has rallied his forces. They're launching a full-scale assault on our position." The room erupted into frantic activity. Laros turned to Jesse, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the moment. It seems, Sergeant Stevens, that the fate of both our species now hangs in the balance. What do you propose? Jesse's mind raced, considering their options. He turned to Harper and Laros, a daring plan forming in his mind. We need to work together, a joint human Iridian operation to neutralize Vex's rebellion and secure the mothership. It's our only chance to end this conflict before it escalates beyond our control. As they began to strategize, Zyla approached Jesse, her skin shimmering with a mix of dedication and nervousness. Jesse, she said softly, I have thought about what you told us earlier, about human mating and genetic exchange. I volunteer to undergo this process with you. Jesse froze, caught off guard by her offer. The implications raced through his mind, the potential diplomatic impact, the ethical considerations, the personal complications. As Vex's forces drew closer and time ran short to establish communication with Earth, Jesse found himself faced with a decision that could shape the future of human-Iridian relations. The weight of two civilizations seemed to rest on his shoulders as he looked from Zyla to the assembled leaders of both species. Whatever he decided, Jesse knew that the next few moments would change the course of history for both humans and Iridians. The sound of battle drew closer, underscoring the urgency of the situation. With a deep breath, Jesse prepared to make his choice, knowing that the consequences would ripple across the stars. Galaxies. Jesse took a deep breath, his mind racing as he considered Zyla's offer. The potential implications were staggering, not just for him personally, but for the future of human-Iridian relations. He looked into Zyla's multifaceted eyes, seeing the mix of purpose and vulnerability reflected there. Zyla, he said softly, I understand the significance of what you're proposing. If we do this, we need to establish clear boundaries and protocols. This isn't just about us. It's about the future of our species. Zyla's skin rippled with a mix of relief and anticipation. I agree, Jesse. We must approach this with care and respect. Before they could discuss further, the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared as Vex's forces breached the outer defenses of the communication center. Grand Executor Laros's voice cut through the chaos. Secure the perimeter. We cannot let them reach the central chamber. Colonel Harper sprang into action, her military training taking over. Johnson, Lee, take your teams and flank the eastern corridor. Martinez, set up a sniper position on the upper level. We need to bottleneck their approach. As Harper's soldiers moved into position, Laros coordinated with his loyal Iridian guards. The two species, so recently at odds, now worked in seamless cooperation against a common threat. Jesse turned to Zyla and Chief Geneticist Zorn. We need to move now. Is there a secure location nearby where we can proceed? Zorn nodded, his elongated fingers dancing across a control panel. There's a research chamber adjacent to the communication center. It's equipped with the necessary monitoring equipment to gather genetic data. As energy bolts sizzled past, Jesse, Zyla, and a small team of Iridian scientists hurried to the secure chamber. The door sealed behind them, muffling the sounds of battle outside. Inside, Jesse felt a surreal calm descend. The gravity of what they were about to do hit him anew. He turned to Zyla, who stood nervously by a sleek alien examination table. I think it's best if I explain human courtship rituals first, Jesse said, his voice gentle. There's a lot more to it than just the physical act. As Jesse began to describe human dating customs, Zyla's initial shock gave way to fascination. Her skin shimmered with curious patterns as she asked questions about everything from first dates to expressions of affection. So humans often begin with something called a kiss? Zyla asked, her head tilted in curiosity. Jesse nodded, acutely aware of the Iridian scientists observing their every move. Yes, it's a way of showing affection and building intimacy. He stepped closer to Zyla, his heart racing. Slowly giving her time to process each movement, he cupped her face in his hands. Her skin was smoother than he expected, with a slight electric tingle that sent shivers down his spine. As their lips met, Jesse was surprised by the alien yet not unpleasant sensation. Zyla's skin flushed with bioluminescent patterns, her body responding to the unfamiliar contact. Outside the chamber, the battle raged on. Colonel Harper's voice crackled over the comm system. "They're pushing through our eastern flank. We need reinforcements." Laros responded immediately, his resonant voice calm despite the chaos. "Deploying second wave of guards now. Hold your positions." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Warning klaxons blared as systems began to fail. In the research chamber, Jesse and Zyla progressed through the stages of human intimacy, their movements hesitant at first, but growing more confident. The Iridian scientists worked feverishly, monitoring the cellular interactions between their two species. Suddenly, Chief Geneticist Zorn let out a startled exclamation. "Incredible! The physical contact is triggering an unexpected reaction at the cellular level. This could be the key to solving our genetic crisis." As Jesse and Zyla's intimacy deepened, the ship's artificial gravity began to fluctuate. Outside, Harper had initiated a desperate plan to overload the power systems, creating a localized EMP to disable the rebels' energy weapons. The gambit worked, but at a cost. Ship-wide systems began to fail, including life support. As alarms blared and the gravity shifted unpredictably, Jesse and Zyla hurriedly dressed. "We need to get to the communications center," Jesse said urgently. "If Zorn's right about this genetic breakthrough, we might have a chance to end this conflict peacefully." They rushed out of the chamber, Zorn close behind with his preliminary findings. The corridors were in chaos, with human and Iridian fighters grappling in zero-gravity conditions. Jesse pushed through the melee, his mind racing. If they could establish contact with Earth, present this new information. They burst into the communication center, just as Harper's team repelled another wave of Vex's forces. Jesse rushed to the central console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "This is Sergeant Jesse Stevens of Earth, requesting emergency communication with Earth Command," he broadcast, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. As they waited for a response, Vex's voice boomed through the ship's speakers. "This is your final warning, Laros. Surrender now, or we'll destroy the entire ship." Jesse locked eyes with Harper and Laros. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. "I'm going out there," he said. "I think I can talk Vex down." Before anyone could object, Jesse was moving. He navigated the failing gravity with practiced ease, using Iridian control panels to propel himself forward. He could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with Vex himself. The rebel leader's weapon was raised, his multifaceted eyes blazing with commitment. Jesse raised his hand slowly. "Vex, listen to me. We've made a breakthrough. There's a way to save your species without war, without forced breeding programs. But we need to stop this fight now, before it's too late." Vex's weapon wavered, uncertainty creeping into his posture. "Why should I believe you, human?" "Because I've seen it myself," Jesse replied, his voice firm. "I've experienced the potential of our species working together. If we can just talk, I can show you—" A violent tremor shook the ship, cutting off Jesse's words. Warning lights flashed, indicating critical system failures. In that moment of distraction, Vex lunged forward, his weapon charging for a deadly shot. Time seemed to slow as Jesse reacted, drawing on his military training and newfound understanding of Iridian physiology. He moved with fluid precision, using the fluctuating gravity to his advantage. As Jesse and Vex grappled, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The ship's systems continued to deteriorate around them, a stark reminder of the urgency of their situation. With Earth's response to their communication still pending, and Vex's forces pressing their advantage, Jesse knew that the next few moments would be crucial in determining the outcome of this interstellar crisis. Conflict. Jesse's muscles tensed as he prepared for Vex's attack, but in that moment a crackling voice echoed through the ship's comm system. "This is Earth Command responding to Sergeant Stevens. We're receiving you. What's your situation?" The unexpected interruption caused Vex to hesitate, his weapon still trained on Jesse. Seizing the opportunity, Jesse spoke quickly, his voice calm but urgent. "Vex, listen. Earth is responding. This is our chance for a peaceful resolution. Lower your weapon and let's talk this out." For a tense moment, Vex's multifaceted eyes flickered between Jesse and the comm panel. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. "Speak, human, but know that if this is a trick, I will not hesitate to end you." Jesse nodded, then turned to the comm panel. "Earth Command, this is Sergeant Stevens. We have a critical situation aboard the Iridian mothership. I'm requesting immediate diplomatic intervention. We've made a breakthrough that could benefit both our species, but we need your support to stabilize the situation here." As Jesse outlined the recent events, including the genetic discovery and the potential for an alliance, Vex listened intently. The rebel leader's posture gradually relaxed as he processed the implications of Jesse's words. Earth's response was cautious but optimistic. "Sergeant Stevens, your actions have not gone unnoticed. We're dispatching a diplomatic team immediately. In the meantime, you have authorization to negotiate preliminary terms with the Iridian leadership." With Earth's backing, Jesse turned to Vex. "You heard them. This is our chance to end this conflict peacefully. The forced breeding program is off the table. Instead, we're offering a collaborative research effort that could save your species without compromising anyone's freedom." Vex's eyes narrowed, considering Jesse's words. "And what of my followers? What assurances can you offer for their safety?" "Full amnesty," Jesse replied without hesitation. "In exchange for laying down your weapons and cooperating with the new alliance, your knowledge and skills will be valuable in this joint effort." After a long moment, Vex nodded. "Very well, human. I will stand down. But know that I will be watching closely to ensure you honor your words." As Vex communicated the ceasefire to his forces, Jesse let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He made his way back to the communications center, where Colonel Harper and Grand Executor Laros were waiting anxiously. "It's done," Jesse announced as he entered. "Vex has agreed to stand down. Earth is sending a diplomatic team." The relief in the room was palpable. Harper clapped Jesse on the shoulder, while Laros's skin rippled with patterns of gratitude. "Well done, Sergeant," Harper said. "I didn't think we'd make it out of this one." Laros stepped forward, his posture formal. "Sergeant Stevens, your actions today have saved countless lives, both Iridian and human. On behalf of my people, I thank you." As the immediate crisis subsided, attention quickly turned to the genetic breakthrough. Chief Geneticist Zorn burst into the room, his elongated fingers gesticulating excitedly as he spoke. "Grand Executor, the preliminary results are astounding. The human-Iridian cellular interaction shows incredible promise. However, we'll need a larger sample size to develop a comprehensive solution." Laros considered this information, then turned to Jesse and Harper. "It seems our path forward is clear. I propose we expand our cooperation. A select group of human volunteers to participate in further research on our homeworld." Harper's expression tightened. "And what assurances can you offer for the safety of our people?" "A joint oversight committee," Jesse suggested quickly, "with representatives from both species. We can establish protocols to ensure ethical standards are maintained." As they hashed out the details, Jesse found his mind drifting to Zyla. He spotted her across the room, deep in conversation with a group of Iridian scientists. Catching his eye, she made her way over. "Jesse," she said softly, her skin shimmering with a mix of emotions. "What you did today, it was incredible." He smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I couldn't have done it without you, Zyla. Your courage in volunteering for the initial experiment made all of this possible." Zyla's skin flushed with bioluminescent patterns. "I've been thinking, if this program moves forward, the humans who come to our world will need guidance. Someone to help them understand our customs, especially regarding reproduction and relationships." Jesse nodded, seeing where she was going. "A cultural exchange program. It's a great idea, Zyla, and I think you'd be perfect to help lead it." Over the next few days, as Earth's diplomatic team arrived and negotiations progressed, Jesse found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. He worked closely with Zyla to develop the framework for the cultural exchange program, while also assisting in the selection process for human volunteers. The news of the alliance with the Iridians spread quickly on Earth, sparking a range of reactions. Jesse watched news reports showing crowds gathering in major cities, some celebrating the dawn of a new era, others protesting what they saw as a threat to humanity. "It's not going to be easy," Harper commented, standing beside Jesse as they watched the reports. "There's a lot of fear and mistrust to overcome." Jesse nodded, his expression determined. "Which is why this program is so important. The more we understand each other, the less we'll fear each other." As the date for departure to the Iridian homeworld approached, Jesse threw himself into preparations. He oversaw the rigorous evaluation process for the human volunteers, ensuring they were physically and psychologically prepared for the challenges ahead. Zyla, having been officially assigned as Jesse's personal guide on the Iridian homeworld, spent long hours with him, sharing insights into her world and culture. Their relationship deepened, becoming a living example of the potential for human-Iridian cooperation. However, not everyone was pleased with the rapid pace of events. A series of sabotage attempts threatened to derail the program, targeting key systems on both the Iridian mothership and Earth's launch facilities. Jesse and Harper led a joint human-Iridian security team to investigate. Their efforts paid off when they uncovered a splinter group of Vex's former supporters, still clinging to their isolationist ideals. In a tense confrontation, Jesse faced down the group's leader, an Iridian named Kraz. "You're fighting against the only chance your species has for survival," Jesse argued. "Is your hatred really worth the extinction of your people?" His words, combined with the overwhelming evidence of the genetic breakthrough, finally broke through Kraz's resistance. The sabotage attempts ceased, and the program was back on track. On the day of departure, Jesse stood in the Iridian docking bay, watching as the human volunteers boarded the transport ship. Zyla stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. Jesse took a deep breath, taking in the scene before him. The human volunteers, each chosen for their unique skills and adaptability, chatted with their Iridian counterparts. It was a sight he never could have imagined just weeks ago. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, managing a smile. "It's going to be one hell of an adventure." As they made their way to the boarding ramp, Jesse caught sight of Vex watching from a nearby observation deck. The former rebel leader gave him a nod of acknowledgement, a silent testament to how far they'd come. Jesse and Zyla stepped onto the transport ship, finding their seats among the mix of humans and Iridians. As the engines hummed to life and the docking bay doors began to open, Jesse felt a profound sense of the history they were making. The ship lifted off, carrying them towards an uncertain future. As the blue marble of Earth receded behind them and the vast expanse of space opened up ahead, Jesse knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, humans and Iridians united in a common purpose. Humans and Iridians united in a common purpose. As the transport ship glided through the inky void of space, Jesse gazed out the viewport, marveling at the alien constellations. Zyla sat beside him, her skin pulsing with a soft, calming glow. The anticipation of their arrival on the Iridian homeworld filled the cabin with a palpable energy. Suddenly, a violent shudder rocked the ship. Alarms blared, and the cabin lights flickered ominously. Jesse's military instincts kicked in as he unstrapped himself from his seat. "What's happening?" he called out, making his way to the cockpit. Cray, the Iridian pilot, manipulated the controls with his multiple appendages, his multifaceted eyes darting between screens. "Massive energy surge from the planet's surface," he reported, his voice strained. "All systems are failing." Jesse's mind raced. He turned to address the passengers, his voice calm but authoritative. "Everyone, secure yourselves and any loose equipment. We're going to have a rough landing." As the ship plummeted towards the alien world, Jesse organized the humans and Iridians into teams. "Johnson, Zyla, manage life support. Chen, take Zorn and check hull integrity. Everyone else, brace for impact." The ship's emergency thrusters engaged, slowing their descent, but the landing was far from smooth. They skidded across a vast crystalline plain, the screech of metal against crystal filling the air. With a final, bone-jarring thud, they came to a stop. In the eerie silence that followed, Jesse's voice rang out. "Status report. Is everyone all right?" A chorus of groans and affirmatives answered him. As the dust settled, Jesse led a team to assess the damage. The ship's sleek hull was battered and scored, but miraculously intact. However, the news from the comm station was grim. "Long-range communications are completely fried," reported Lieutenant Sanjay, shaking her head. "We're cut off from Earth and Iridian High Command." Jesse exchanged a look with Zyla, whose skin had taken on a worried hue. "We need to establish a secure perimeter and take stock of our supplies," he said. "Zyla, any idea where we are?" Zyla's eyes darted across the alien landscape visible through the viewports. Yes, I recognize this region. We're on the outskirts of an abandoned Iridian outpost. It might have supplies we can use." Jesse nodded, formulating a plan. "All right, we'll organize an expedition to the outpost. But first, let's make sure this crash site is secure." As they worked to set up a temporary camp, movement on the crystalline plain caught Jesse's eye. A group of strange bioluminescent creatures approached, walking on multiple limbs with an otherworldly grace. Zyla gasped beside him. "Lumina," she whispered, her skin flashing with excitement. "They were thought to be extinct." The Lumina regarded the crash survivors with apparent curiosity, their glowing bodies pulsing with complex patterns. Jesse stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Zyla," he said softly, "how do we communicate with them?" "We can try a combination of our methods," she replied. "Iridian light patterns and human gestures." Together, they approached the Lumina. Jesse moved his hands in slow, deliberate motions, while Zyla's skin flickered with intricate designs. The Lumina watched, their own bioluminescence shifting in response. After several tense moments, one of the Lumina stepped forward, mimicking Jesse's hand gestures. A ripple of relief passed through the human and Iridian onlookers. With the immediate threat of hostilities averted, Jesse turned his attention to the abandoned outpost. "Zyla, can you lead a team to investigate, see if there's anything we can use to repair the ship or boost our communications?" As Zyla's team set off with a group of curious Lumina in tow, Jesse organized the remaining crew to fortify their position. The alien sun began to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline landscape. Hours later, Zyla's team returned, their faces a mix of excitement and concern. "Jesse," Zyla called out, her skin pulsing rapidly, "you need to see this." Inside the ancient facility, Jesse stared in awe at the pulsing core of energy that seemed to be the source of the surge that had downed their ship. Chief Geneticist Zorn hovered over a console, his elongated fingers flying across the alien interface. "This technology," Zorn exclaimed, "it's unlike anything in our current records. It seems to be tied directly to the planet's core and, Jesse, I believe this could be the key to solving our genetic crisis." Jesse's mind reeled at the implications. "How?" Zorn's explanation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the facility. Outside, the Lumina's bioluminescence flared in patterns of alarm. As night fell on the alien world, Jesse found himself facing challenges he could never have imagined. The crash survivors needed to repair their ship, contact their homeworlds, unlock the secrets of the ancient Iridian technology, and navigate the complexities of interacting with the Lumina. Jesse and Zyla stood at the entrance of the outpost, looking out over the moonlit crystalline plain. The beauty of the alien world was breathtaking, but Jesse couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. High above, hidden from sight, a cloaked ship hung in orbit. Inside, Commander Vex, his eyes glittering with malice, watched the events unfolding on the surface. "Prepare the assault team," he ordered, his voice cold with perseverance. "It's time we took control of our destiny." As Jesse organized the night watch, unaware of the threat looming above, he knew that the challenges ahead would test the limits of human Iridian cooperation. But looking at Zyla, her skin glowing softly in the alien twilight, he felt a spark of hope. Together, they had already accomplished the impossible. Whatever came next, they would face it united. As the alien sun crept over the horizon, painting the crystalline landscape in hues of violet and amber, Jesse stood at the entrance of the ancient Iridian outpost. The events of the previous night still deeply affected on his mind, but the beauty of the alien dawn filled him with a renewed sense of purpose. "Jesse!" Zyla called, her skin pulsing with soft blue light. Zorn thinks he's made progress with the energy core. You should come see. Together they made their way through the winding corridors of the outpost, passing humans and Iridians working side by side to unravel the mysteries of the ancient technology. The Lumina, their bioluminescent bodies casting an ethereal glow, moved gracefully among them, their curiosity palpable. In the central chamber, Chief Geneticist Zorn hovered over a complex array of controls, his elongated fingers dancing across the alien interface. "Ah, Jesse, excellent timing," he said, his multifaceted eyes glinting with excitement. "I believe I've identified the primary energy conduits. If we can—" A deafening klaxon cut through the air, drowning out Zorn's words. Red warning lights bathed the chamber in an ominous glow. "We're under attack," Lieutenant Sanjay's voice crackled over the comm system. "Multiple hostiles breaching the outer defenses." Jesse's mind raced, assessing the situation. "Sanjay, organize our security teams. Zyla, get our non-combat personnel to safety. Zorn, secure this chamber. We can't let them get their hands on this technology." As Jesse sprinted towards the outpost entrance, he saw chaos unfolding. Heavily armed Iridians in unfamiliar armor poured through breaches in the walls, their weapons unleashing bursts of searing energy. "It's Vex!" Zyla shouted, her skin flashing with patterns of alarm as she joined Jesse. "He must have followed us." Jesse ducked behind a fallen column, narrowly avoiding a blast of energy that left a smoking crater in the wall behind him. He watched as a group of Lumina, their bodies pulsing with intense light, used their bioluminescence to disorient the attackers. "Good thinking," Jesse muttered, then raised his voice. "Everyone, coordinate with the Lumina. Use their light patterns to your advantage." The battle raged through the crystalline corridors, a desperate struggle of light and shadow. Jesse and Zyla fought side by side, their movements perfectly synchronized. As an attacker lunged at Jesse, Zyla's tentacle-like appendage wrapped around the assailant's weapon, yanking it away and allowing Jesse to deliver a swift knockout blow. "Jesse," Zorn's voice crackled over the comm. "I've made a breakthrough. The core energy, it can be safely harnessed, but it requires a human and Iridian interface." "We're on our way," Jesse shouted back, motioning to Zyla. They fought their way through the chaos, leaving a trail of incapacitated attackers in their wake. As they neared the central chamber, a familiar figure stepped into view, blocking their path. Commander Vex, his eyes gleaming with malice, raised a weapon unlike anything Jesse had seen before. "You've interfered with my plans for the last time, human," Vex snarled. Jesse barely had time to react as Vex fired. He felt Zyla's push, sending him tumbling to the side as the energy blast seared past, leaving a hole in the wall large enough to drive a truck through. Jesse rolled to his feet, closing the distance between himself and Vex before the commander could fire again. They grappled, Jesse's human strength matched against Vex's alien physiology. The weapon clattered to the ground as they exchanged blows, each seeking to gain the upper hand. "Zyla, go!" Jesse shouted between strikes. "Activate the core!" As Zyla raced towards the control panel, Vex's eyes widened in realization. "No!" he roared, redoubling his efforts to break free from Jesse's hold. In a desperate move, Vex slammed his head forward, catching Jesse off guard. Stars exploded in Jesse's vision as he stumbled backward. Vex lunged for a small device on his wrist, his finger hovering over a button. "If I can't have this technology, no one will," Vex spat. Jesse tackled him, but it was too late. Vex's finger came down on the button, and a distant explosion rocked the outpost. Alarms blared with renewed intensity. "What have you done?" Jesse demanded, pinning Vex to the ground. Vex's laughter was cold and bitter. "My ship's reactor is destabilizing. When it goes, it'll take this entire planet with it." The floor beneath them trembled, and Jesse could feel a change in the air, a building pressure that made his ears pop. "Jesse," Zyla called out, "we need you here now." Delivering a final blow to ensure Vex stayed down, Jesse sprinted to the control panel where Zyla waited. Her skin flickered with complex patterns as her appendages danced across the alien interface. "What do I need to do?" Jesse asked, his heart pounding. "Place your hands here," Zyla instructed. indicating two smooth, glowing surfaces. Focus on the energy. Feel it flowing through you, through us both. As Jesse's palms made contact with the panel, he felt a jolt of energy course through his body. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, a rush of power that made every nerve-ending tingle. Together, human and Iridian, they guided the ancient technology. Jesse could sense the planet's core, feel its rhythms and pulses. He saw, in his mind's eye, the destruction Vex had unleashed, the cascade of energy threatening to tear the world apart. With Xyla's guidance, Jesse directed the core's energy. It flowed through them, around them, extending beyond the confines of the outpost. A shimmering field of energy expanded outward, enveloping the planet in a protective cocoon. The ground stopped shaking. The alarms fell silent, and in the sudden quiet, Jesse became aware of a change in the air, a sense of renewal, of rebirth. Slowly, carefully, they disengaged from the control panel. Jesse's legs felt weak, and he leaned against Xyla for support. "Did it work?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Before Xyla could answer, Lieutenant Sanjay's voice came over the comm, filled with awe and disbelief. "Jesse, Xyla, you need to see this." They made their way to the outpost's entrance, where humans, Iridians, and Lumina alike stood in stunned silence. The crystalline plain before them was transformed. Where there had been barren expanses, now lush alien vegetation sprouted. The sky shimmered with auroras of impossible colors. And in the distance, rising from the ground like monuments of light, ancient Iridian structures pulsed with newfound energy. "It's beautiful," Xyla whispered, her skin glowing with patterns of joy and wonder. As they stood there, marveling at the reborn world around them, Jesse's comm unit crackled to life. A familiar voice, tinged with static but unmistakable, filled the air. "This is Earth Command to any survivors of the Iridian expedition. Do you copy?" Jesse's eyes met Xyla's, a smile spreading across his face. "This is Commander Jesse. We copy Earth Command. And have we got a story for you?"
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.